diverse process.
Dispelling the myths, mobile technologies are not accessible. It depends on who you're looking to and what you do. So a lot of our work is around dispelling the myths and giving staff the skills, confidence, resources, but then also working at policy level, at government level, at senior management level in institutions to try and aid taking those barriers. We have a phrase that is about most institutions have very large walls, and then we provide people with very large ladders to get over the walls. We're trying to make you build buildings or have institutions or virtual spaces with no walls, so people can get through them much easier.
Some of the work that we're doing is with getting libraries who are using technology quite innovatively. I've put some URLs in the presentation there, and you will be able to download the presentation both from the conference site, that's right, isn't it, Chris? And also from our own website. So you can get these links if you don't have time to write them down. But there's some really good examples of where people are using things like Twitter, things like SMS, text messaging, within libraries. So for example, a student who is on the 19th floor of the library can text the help desk that's down on the ground floor and say, I'm standing in the middle of the biology zone, but I still can't find what I'm looking for. Where do I go? We've got universities in the UK now who are using them. Basically, all it is, if you don't know what QR code is, it looks like that little crossword thing that Sal had on the earlier slide, that thing in the corner there. And there's a free website where you can print those out. If you just do a Google search on QR generator, you'll find a site where you can type in some text or a web address, click a button, and it generates a picture, and then, which is that, and then that picture, anyone can come along to with any mobile phone that has a camera, and just take a picture of it. You have to download some software, but the software's free. You just, again, do a Google search on the model of phone you've got and QR reader. If you have a Nokia, it's called QuickMark, that's the one I use. And you just take a picture of the code, and whatever text you coded into there, or whatever web address you coded into there, will come up on the phone. What some universities, some libraries are doing, is if they have, let's say, 5 copies of a popular book, and this book's going out all the time, people always have it. Next to the 5 copies on the shelf, they put a card with that on it. So if there's no copies left on the shelf, the user can come along, take a photograph of the card, it comes up with a web address that they just click, and that goes straight to the library and says, I want to be next person for this book. So there's all sorts of uses that you can make of those. What did you say?
I was just going to say, we have a specialist college in the UK that's saved over £500,000 on transport costs, directing the students with special needs to get to them using bus stops, because they've actually put these on the local bus stop that says if you need to get to college from here, it's a number 4 bus and it costs you whatever. Wouldn't that be a great way of you getting people to come from your library, taking the UK Online Centre model, where you could have these things put around your cities, your towns, that actually give a treasure trail, and it actually brings you back to the library using a different kind of device?
We also have a website. I'll just see if I can go to this. I've already talked about most of these links. But we're also working with the kinds of people who create the learning materials that you often offer in libraries, the courses that people take, that learn to use the internet, learn to use a computer, all those wonderful things that we saw with the telecentres earlier, those kinds of materials. And we put together some material to help those people, so when it comes to delivery in the library setting, it'll hopefully be a bit more inclusive from that perspective. So we've divided up, if you have users who have difficulty hearing, users who have difficulty seeing, whatever, and it gives you some pointers as to how you can present your information in the library that will be more accessible to those. So Sal's going to just, as we started with the e-books, is going to move back onto that around.
I think the issue for us is that wherever people are, wherever they're trying to aid, and I think everybody who spoke in the previous session were talking about the new roles of library staff, information brokers. I love the, I forgot what you called them, Ian, but the animators, those people, whatever it was, the phrase you gave that was a wonderful expression. And there's a lot of that already going on. And we want to expose technology in its widest sense and how it can aid and help the community and the wider society, but with always that focus in our minds about, hang on, what about those people that can't do that for, as Sam says, physical reasons, mental issues, whatever they are. So we always have that clearly in our minds. So you may or may not have come across another part of GIST called GIST Collections, huge procurement service really for the UK, and with them we're commissioning 1,000 e-books, particularly for the vocational education world, so hairdressing, construction, those kind of areas. But right at the very beginning, we've put accessibility in, and we're working with the learning content providers, linking back to the slide that Simon's just shown. So really taking those content producers through what they have to think about. And we've even got this thing called the Accessibility Passport, which starts to ask the questions that developers never ask. They think they know how to design learning materials because they've got a checklist of the technical standards. And forgive me for those of you that love all the technical standards in the world, the WCAGs and the this and that, they're great. Again, I mentioned earlier on this notion of MoleNet, this huge program. If you want to see some exciting things, Google the word MoleNet and you'll see Mole is Mobile Learning Network, and just have a look at their fantastic resources and you'll see some of those things. But it comes back down to my personal thing, and Helen's absolutely right from yesterday. It's not about platforms, it's not about pipes, it's about people. It's about people and skills, and I agree wholeheartedly with Ian. The notion that the people in the libraries, the people in those community centres, be them voluntary, be them professional, they are the people that make the difference. So one of the key things for us is how do we reward and recognise those people who actually, just because they're really good and they happen to have a blind reader comes into their public library and they go out of their way to make things work for that person. It's not in that library staff's job description. It's not in their professional qualifications. The fact they're very good with assistive technology means that, if you're familiar with the programme JAWS or some of the screen reader they get quite proficient at doing those things because they happen to have a regular blind user that comes in every fortnight. Nobody has ever said that as part of their professional framework that there's a way of actually accrediting that. And we have just the same thing in the school teaching side, just the same in the university. So what we're trying to say is that as a part of everyday practice, we should have IT accessible practices inside professional qualifications. So we're working heavily with our teacher training agencies, hopefully with CILIP and the library bodies, to make it a standard that as part of those frameworks there is a qualification structure that can recognise the skills of those people in the kinds of jobs that they do now. It may well be that they're now using the iPhone, and I won't say we can take all the credit, but I don't know whether you know that the iPhone now has got the Daisy book reader inside it, and we've now got, are you familiar with RoboBraille? That lovely service, you can email your documents straight off and it comes back either as an MP3 file or now as a Daisy book, free of charge, comes back in less than 5 minutes. But it means if you can do that, you can put them straight on an iPhone. Now, how do you recognise that skill that some member of staff have found out how to do that and are using it with their users? And that's what it's all about. So we've got the first qualification now for the ITQ, the IT qualification in accessible practice. Because that's what we firmly believe, that actually a library equals a community, and part of those things together is accessibility in its broadest sense. Accessibility on platform, via the pipes and platforms, but mostly with the people. So technology drives all that,